I just saw it in the Facebook thing.
Okay.
Actually, I get like a little message notification, and that's where I saw it.
Oh.
Where do you look for the link, Kim?
I look for a notification, and I usually see one, at least half an hour before the broadcast. But today, when I clicked on the link, I clicked on the other link just to watch the broadcast.
Yeah.
So I poked around, and I probably just didn't go into the right spot.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
Really, always the best spot to go to is the session 10. Just if you in your Facebook search bar, if you type in session, it'll probably start to come up.
Oh.
And go to session 10, and that's always where I post this private link. And the agenda is usually right below it.
Perfect.
But that's our private space for these kinds of links. So, all right, so it is 5:32. We're live. I guess let's give it a few minutes to see if maybe a couple of more people come. I'm pretty sure Nicole is going to be here. I have not talked to Venita today, so I'm not sure about Venita or Georgette, but we'll see. Venita is usually here if she's coming. She comes early, so may not be with us tonight.
And we did change the time, so maybe it's an oversight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
She was here. She's been here. She was here last week, though.
Yeah.
Or week before last.
5:32?
Yeah, week before last, she came for 5:30.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I think
we'll scratch that.
Yeah, I think Tuesday is one of her days off, so.
Nicole says she's coming in 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, how's everybody doing?
Got a lot done today, so I'm feeling pretty good.
Feeling pretty good as well.
Oh, G. Moses is here.
Oh,
Hey.
Well, all right.
How's everybody doing?
We're good, but I can't see you.
Oh, interesting. Oh, sorry. My little personal security, after they said that they could turn your camera on, I put tape over mine.
Me too.
I did too.
Hey, you gotta use analog and manual techniques to outwit these crooks.
Yes. I don't know if it works, but it makes me feel better.
I know, right? They're probably watching me through my TV. That's why I'm putting tape on my computer, right?
Right.
Oh my goodness. Well, Michelle, you in usual good form. You went in on the chapters.
Oh my God.
I'm like, oh, she making me think. Oh Lord.
As usual, I know we're not going to get to all of it.
It gave me a flashback to, some of the other books we did. Michelle was doing a doctorate. I'm doing my thesis on this stuff. Girl, you got so many skills.
Man, you are talented.
Thank you, but there's just so much going on in this book.
You're right about that.
Yeah, and it's just really, I'm just trying to keep up with Nicole Dennis-Benn.
Well, she had an interview online. I think it's on Vimeo. And she was talking about this book. I didn't get to finish it, but I'm trying to get back to it to hear, her explain her characters and how she, you know, created this storyline for this whole book. So,
Yeah.
we just really don't, I guess, appreciate the complexity of the different cultures we have for people all
Mm-hmm.
over the world. What their stories really are. We take them at face value or just whatever media is showing us because, that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Mind control and all that business. But
Mm-hmm.
wow, I have a whole new better perspective of people whose background comes from, the islands. Wow. I hope that's not offensive. Is Leonie? Is that cool to say
Cool.
people that come from the islands?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay, okay.
Well, to me, as I read these stories, they just sound so universal to me, um,
Mm.
that to me the flavor that I get from the islands mostly comes through her use of dialect and her descriptions of food. And we haven't talked about food, but she's got something about food going on, I think, in every chapter.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's I guess that's another silent character in the
Yeah,
food. Hmm.
yeah.
Def
But
Go
beyond
ahead.
that, the stories of hardship and hard choices and struggle to survive and um, I think you can find most anywhere.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Some of the questions you asked about, you know, kind of put you in the perspective of or the position of judging the character, why they made these choices. And that
Hmm.
made me think about, some of the documentaries I've seen about, you know, men and women and boys and girls in down in South America or in Asia, who have to use their body for trade, however they were, put in that particular situation. And it's about survival, and you have to
Hmm.
use the tools you have, you
Right,
know.
right. Yeah, and I think we've done well as a group. I haven't really heard anybody like being judgmental about that, or at least from my perspective. I don't know. Leonie probably sees something different, but I think we've all been pretty understanding. Um, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah. Well, we are a pretty mature and eclectic group, so I don't think we would, we don't have any extremists
Yeah,
in our group who just see through, a particular set of glasses. And I
yeah.
think, perhaps religion would be one of those, which
Mm-hmm.
kind of plays a part in this story too. Why the
Mm-hmm.
people are stuck in their way of thinking and how they respond to the circumstances and each other.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Absolutely. Well, our Wakandan queen is here.
Hey everyone.
Hey,
I got in a little late with the girls, but I'm here.
that's
I'm
okay.
excited. How are you all?
Good.
Doing good.
Good,
Yeah.
thanks.
Absolutely.
So this is probably it because I'm thinking Venita probably is not going to join us today. Oh,
Okay.
Okay.
on my phone it says I'm running late. I'll be there at 6.
Okay.
So she will be here at 6.
Okay.
So let's go on and get started. Where am I
Okay.
getting background noise from?
Okay.
Oh, that's probably me.
Oh, okay. So yeah. Well, don't go too far away because I want you all to introduce yourselves. So that's coming up quickly. But I'd like to welcome everyone to the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle, where we are in session 10, reading our 10th book together, which is Here Comes the Sun by Nicole Dennis-Benn, a fictional tale about 3 generations of women surviving in Jamaica. And this is meeting 5 for this session. So we're about halfway through the book and at the point in the book where our main character has crossed the line.
Okay.
So it'll be interesting to see how we're feeling about that. And you can learn more about the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle on Google+, on Facebook, and where we keep all of our archives on YouTube. And let's go around and let me go order that people came in. Leonie.
Hello, everyone. I'm Leonie. I'm joining you from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And as requested and required, I now have a physical copy of the book.
Oh,
Okay.
Is that hard? Is that hardcover?
It's paperback, but it's a UK cover.
That's because everybody's in
Oh, I
Oh.
haven't seen that cover. Cool. Yeah.
Welcome,
And
everybody.
let me see the cover again. Oh.
That's interesting.
I like mine
How
better.
different. Oh, yours has more flavors. That's what you're trying to say.
Yeah, it looks like an island.
Okay.
That one looks like Africa.
Mine is plain. Oh, okay. The cover was
Okay.
removed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Put
mine
yours
looks
down,
more like
Nicole. Put yours
Michelle.
down.
Yeah, mine is plain.
Okay, put it back in your pants, women. Put it back in your pants.
Yes.
Y'all a mess.
And Kim.
This is going to be some session. I'm Kim, and I am in New York, and just looking forward to the session today.
Well, welcome. And G. Moses.
Hey, I'm Georgette. I'm in Columbia, South Carolina. Man, I had to think about that for a minute. That's bad. Glad to be here amongst you all.
Welcome. And Nicole.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Wilson. I am joining you today from College Station, Texas.
Welcome. And I am Logan Michelle Odom, located in Brooklyn, New York. And let's see. And Leonie, you're squared away for next week, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, so tonight we are focusing on chapters 10 to 12. So let me go ahead and read the summary. Chapter 10 brings us to the conclusion of part 1, God Na Like Ugly, of this session's text, Here Comes the Sun, by Nicole Dennis-Benn. While ugliness is surely a matter of personal perspective and preference, in this section, we have seen Blackness identified as ugly and followed the themes of colorism, sex work, lesbianism, homophobia, abusive men, tourism and development, and other perceived wrongs in the lives of poor Black women situated in Jamaica. The focus of chapter 10 is on business and pleasure, as Margot, our main character, attends a business party at Alfonso's villa, where he denies loving her and recruits her to be the hotel's madam. And she is seen by Georgette / Sweetness, who is Asifa and Miss Violet's daughter and Charles's sister, a girl Thandi's age, now in the sex business. The business proposition Alfonso made to Margot leads her to clarifying a vision for her life, to own a hotel and lead tourism in Jamaica, which she shares with Maxie. Chapter 11 leads us into part 2, Chicken Mary Hawk Day Near, referring to a Jamaican proverb on caution that means excessive exuberance invites trouble. Danger lurks in the most unexpected places, so temper our most lighthearted moments with a little sobriety. In chapter 11, Margot, now known as Boss Lady, recruits and trains her first group of young women as sex workers for Alfonso's hotel. She closely observes Miss Novia Scott Henry, whom she sees as competition, and spreads gossip the new general manager and former beauty queen is an undercover lesbian. Margot also intervenes to steer Miss Novia Scott Henry away from queries regarding the hotel's financial records, services the largest potential investor, Giorgio McCarthy, and avoids calls from Verdine. Chapter 12 takes us into the world of a teenage girl, Thandi, who gets another skin bleaching treatment from Miss Ruby and has wet daydreams of Charles. For the first time in her life, she hears she is beautiful as Charles pleads with her to stop the treatments. Later, at the local store, Thandi sees Clover, Dolores' old handyman and the drunk who raped her when she was 9 years old. Seeing Clover triggers Thandi to surface the secret she has held so long and relive this experience with sexual violence. So, of course, I have too many questions, so, I think I highlighted a couple of them. Would you rather choose your own questions? I'm thinking like if we go one chapter and back into chapter, we can probably do 6. Would you like to choose the own question that you're going to read, or you want me to choose the questions? Any preference? No preference?
Yeah, no, either way works.
I have no preference.
Okay, well, Nicole, why don't you read question 1?
Okay. Margot, question for Alfonso. She wants to ask before they have sex. Do you love me? Alfonso is shocked by the question and concerned Margot is developing feelings for him. I'm a married man, he says, and you open your legs every which way for a handout. Because of you, my hotel is in good business. He sees opportunity in Margot's sex work and makes her an offer. Apparently, she can't refuse. The two of us can profit from this. You give me 50% of your profits, then I make you into a wealthy woman. We'll sell sex. You will recruit and train girls you see fit for the business. You'll be the boss lady in charge. With the fleeting thought of Verdine, Margot goes for the money. I'll do it, she says. A. Were you shocked by Alfonso's offer or Margot's response? Is as really her best asset? Is 50% reasonable? In Margot's position, what would you have said to Alfonso?
All right, anybody?
Good question. I'll just go ahead and start off here. So first and foremost, I've got to be honest. I was shocked that Alfonso knew of Margot's underground kind of economy at the hotel. So I was not expecting that. But then when I went in the reverse and processed the logic, I kept asking myself, how could I not have known that? Because there's a plant, in my opinion, a plantation logic here. So even the white owner capitalist is there's this tendency for the Black workers, I believe, to keep the white owner capitalist informed. And so I just see that as a, plantation logic. Like that was just how slavery, in some ways managed to people managed to not be able to subvert the system as they needed to because of that. So having said that, heck no. That's still shady. I mean, I understand this is an underground economy, but that's still shady for him to think he's entitled to 50%. Granted, I can understand thinking of location, but those patrons are paying to stay at the hotel. So if they're already paying to stay, and I guess, easy access, but why should Alfonso make 50% of the profit? I think Margot is almost better off just working her side hustles. And the problem with growing an illegal business is the fact that you are more apt to invite authorities into the fold. But am I shocked that Margot accepted? No. And, ambition, her drive, she's just here to get it.
Yes, she is. Thank you.
I think what I find shocking is she has this plan to go from boss lady to hotel manager. I just don't see how she actually thinks that's now still on the table. I don't understand the logic of that, but it just seems like once you start bringing in this level of criminal activity, it's hard to get straight again.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
I think it speaks to the how small the worldview is. You think of Margot versus like her mother. Like her mother is like stuck on that street, right? And Margot has this job where she's like in a hotel, and so that opens her world up a little bit. But her world still stays around that hotel. She can't imagine. Here she is about to make more money, and her biggest dream is to stay where she's at but have a better title.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like, and she doesn't see that for herself, right? Like they have bigger dreams for Thandi, but even Margot can't see herself outside of this narrow world that she has.
Right.
So it's like, of all the things that she has in that world, between living on her street and going to the hotel, it's like, oops, the only thing this is what I need to go for is to become hotel manager. She's very like, her only talk of leaving that world is her dependent on Verdine. Why am I forgetting the name now?
That's Verdine.
Verdine selling off that house so that she can go live out her fantasy and go live on a piece of property. She doesn't have agency even in her dreams of going beyond the world that she's in.
Yeah. So you were not surprised that she accepted his offer?
I wasn't surprised. I mean, one of the things that I wrote down is that like Alfonso's like constantly putting her in her place, and she knows her place.
Yeah.
It's like when the language is there around. I wrote this down about the um, mahogany sculpture stand in corners, women with enhanced African features carrying children or baskets, couples bent in shapes that aren't humanly possible, beheaded humans with sizable breasts and penises. They could be describing Margot there. That's how Alfonso would describe Margot.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
She is part of the furniture. When she walks back in the room and he's always having his hand around her and all that kind of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't surprise me his offer, because I think that he's only ever talked about her as an object
Right.
around either his pleasure or his dollars.
Wow.
Right. Right.
That's a good point. Wow.
Right? Like, you're talking about someone who's been a staff person since his father ran the place,
Mm-hmm.
and he still only sees her as his father's whore. He must know that Thandi exists and that the mother exists and where she lives, but there's never any. He never comes back to that. Margot only exists for his use.
Yeah. 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 What was surprising to me was that she was pushing this love story on Alfonso when he has done absolutely nothing to suggest that he actually loves her. So, can you imagine yourself in Margot's position? And if that were you, what do you think you might have said to Alfonso?
Well, Margot thinks she's a hustler, but she's lacking skills.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I agree.
Because she falls right into that prostitute and ramrod. Oh, he loves me, but he abuses me scenario. Oh, he said he loved me. That one, that grasping for, why would you want this guy to love you? Okay, you see how he treats everything around him. He's cheating on his wife, so what kind of fidelity is there that hope for you? He keeps leading you on, like he will give you something more, but his idea of something more for you is just to be, as Leonie said, a gilded piece of his furniture, for his business partners to admire. Oh, Alfonso's got it hooked up. He's got, running a Carla's wife in this room. Meanwhile, he's got this villa here filled with half naked, black women and drugs, and we're living the high life with our little flaccid penises.
I like that. I like that, Gio. And you know what? Oh wow, I totally agree with what you're saying. And for me, it made me distrust her narrative voice. So initially I saw kind of this, it was a compromise of power. It was I'm not saying that Margot is operating within my fix, but certainly she was doing her thing nonetheless. She built herself she constructs herself as this hustler, but yet, as you said, Gio, it is interesting to denote that she's a petty hustler. Like she's lacking skills. And so the narrative voice for me now is it diminishes my trust in the whole concept of Margot the hustler, right? Because at one point, I'm cheering her on, like, well, you just, the colonizers have done their thing and you're just doing your thing. But yeah, she's lacking a skill set. And I love what Kim said as well. How do you, this trajectory, there's something inherently wrong with the trajectory that you think you can go she's going to manage prostitution. So she's doing like clerical at the hotel, right? Secretarial work. And then you're going to go to, which that's okay, dream big. And she's going to go to managing prostitutes to hotel owner.
Well, I'm not sure what her work is, but Alfonso's daddy started working there he was apparently really training her on the general management track.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see. So, which means she was, obviously, because she stated it in earlier chapters, she's doing work that she's not compensated for. So I could definitely see that. But something's wrong with that trajectory, right? It's illogical that you're going to go from this to that. And so, like, Maxie's laughter was just like the height, the climactic, that symbolism there. Like, what?
Well, I thought it was kind of logical to go from being a prostitute to being a madam. I guess that is the career ladder.
Right. That makes sense. Right. The problem is we know that there's a gender slant. A lot of times men can do those illegal things and make their money. I hate to use the term black market. I guess I'll stick with underground economy. They can make that illegal money. And, like Jay-Z says, you rinse it. So then you funnel it into a real business. You can go public, kind of like what Empire was, the television series was selling to the viewing audience. We know that generally is not the narrative for women, right? That they can go and make this illegal money and then they can rinse it and create businesses and profit and be wealthy. But for women, we don't necessarily hear of them staking their claims to fame. And power and accessing wealth and maintaining wealth that way. So I think she's so misguided and ill-informed. She really could use a good mentor. That's why we need a mentor. Because I'm not against her. If you got, hey, you decide how you want to make your money, but next step, next level, what do you do after that?
Right. Let's go down and pick up one from chapter 11. Leonie, would you read number 7, please?
Can you skip me for now? I had to restart my computer, so I'm just going to open up that page.
I can read.
Okay.
I can do that. Boss lady holds an orientation for her recruits at Alfonso's villa. Imagine what his wife would say if she knew. Margot presents the sex workers with contracts and lays out the terms, assuring them they will be well compensated. You want to know what you're getting? More than you will ever be getting by yourself. I can't do the dialect thing. Patrolling for men who can barely afford.
Let me just read that part, Kim.
Oh, read all of it. Right, go for it.
You gotta hear the dialect and the force with this piece.
Okay.
You want to know what you're getting? More than you will ever get working by yourself, patrolling for men who can barely afford a trip from Montego Bay to Portland, much less a $50 fuck. You're getting the big man dem, money man who can at least feed you while you're at it. You're getting wined and dined at expensive restaurants that none of you put together could afford. You're getting nice clothes, a makeover, and a place for sleep. And it's not just anywhere you'll sleep. Palm Store Resort is your bedroom. Every sexual favor have to take place in rooms that we reserve for your clients. You're getting exposure, an opportunity that you can't get from the rundown holes you crawl from. That answer your question?
What do you imagine the recruits are thinking at this point? Were you tempted? Wait a minute. Were you tempted by Margot's offer?
Yes.
Margot laid it on the line like a pimp, didn't she?
Yes, like a pimp. That makes sense.
What do you say to
Well, like those poor women said to each other, oh, mama needs a stove. Somebody needs shoes. We're hungry. Where we go? What us go do? What us go do?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When do I start, boss lady? No.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for me, this also demonstrates the other thread to freedom struggles, right? That if I don't really want to view it through a Marxist lens, but I guess I would have to, that at some point when we start talking about, and even though this is an illegal business, supporting Black-owned businesses, but they can be just as detrimental to the community as, outsiders and capitalists, whether they're Black or white. If there's not this ethical impetus, does it really matter that the person who mistreats you and deals shady in a shady manner with you, that sometimes that person just has a Black face? It's still a capitalist. So I thought Nicole Dennis-Benn did a good job here depicting this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's why I think it's important that we try to figure out in our own minds, what we really think we might have done in this kind of situation. That's why I asked the earlier question, is ask her best asset. Because, as Leonie was saying, Margot can't envision a life for herself outside of this context. But how many people are in that same kind of situation where they can't see any further than what's in front of them? And so if your vision is, and I'm saying it like that because I believe in reality, there are always other options, but you have to open another window. You have to go another way. You have to ask a different question. You have to flip the script in some way to identify what those other potential options might be. And I don't know if we have come across it yet in the book, but at some point in the story, it talks about Margot being a sports star when she was in high school. Yeah. And so, that might have been another avenue for her to go down. But because of the experiences she was having with sexual violence, her life got put on a particular path that she hasn't come off of yet. But so if we don't, so here's this woman with a limited vision for her own life, who is imposing vision on her little sister's life, you know, and her little sister is the one that is kind of struggling to get in touch with who she is on the inside and what direction that might lead her in. Margot hasn't had that kind of inner conflict about what to do with her life. She has just kind of accepted what is right there in her face. And one of the questions that maybe we passed already or didn't get to, ask about that age range of 16 to 25 of the girls that Margot is recruiting. But you know what I just wanted to say about that is the age. That is the age where everybody and their mama has an agenda for your life. And it's like being Little Red Riding Hood trying to get from one side of the forest to the next. And there's a wolf over here and a wolf over there and a wolf, 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 wolf everywhere. And so if you don't have a clear picture of where you're headed and how you're going to get there, those wolves are there to snatch you up. And so to me, that's a lot of what's going on with Margot. She's so focused on just succeeding with the game that's been handed her. She's not able to think outside the box. Anybody else want to say?
I would add to Michelle just quickly that I do think her predominant asset is the ass, of course, but there's also something else there. Margot just, I don't know if if it results from what she's gone through and ways that she has just had to be, you know, to survive living with Dolores, ways that she has had to just be very tough and you know, moving and imagining something different for her life, very limited viewpoint, as Leonie stated, but she also has something else, right? This ability to go after what she wants and an ability to imagine and dream it up and act on it. So I think there is, I would like to just remember the complexity of this character, because she definitely has something that the other women don't have, right? She, remember what the text says, that she's the kind of woman, if men or women are in a room, they just have to kind of stare. You have to notice her, right? Mm-hmm. It makes me think about the memes that are floating around on social media saying that when Africans were taken captive, they didn't, you know, what really happened is you had scientists, who had writers, you had creators, so I'm thinking in another context outside of that colonial context, Margot could have probably been a very big, and she might have a real natural skill set that just needs some development, right? Mm-hmm. But again, like all Black exceptionalism, we would probably never know because of the oppressive racial structures. So, I'm getting too excited about this book. I'm not going to interrupt again. I'm going to be quiet so other people can talk.
Venita, welcome. Who are you and where are you and all of that?
I'll tell you guys about where I was later. However, I'm so happy to see everyone this evening. My name is Venita. I'm joining from Provo, Connecticut. Hi, Gio. What's going on, Kim? Leonie. Nicole. How you doing?
You just in from Wakanda?
Yeah, girl. You know what? I try to catch the flight out early. But being that being that Georgia's trying to take away the tax break from Delta, I couldn't get a flight out on time.
Okay.
But I'm here now.
Well,
That's right, Venita.
You know that's right, huh, girl?
Yes.
we are glad you're here. I'm just kind of jumping around in the agenda.
In the book, Michelle, this is not agenda. This is the book.
I'm kind of Georgette.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you read number 15, please?
15.
Okay, 15. Woo, boy. Okay, 15.
Number 15.
Wait. 15. Oh, okay, chapter 12.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Rape left Thandi emotionally disconnected from her body. Her vagina became a separate entity from her body, an organ with its own blood supply, something mangled and left behind. Yet, as Miss Ruby rubs Thandi down with another treatment of skin lightener and massages her breasts, Thandi is reminded of other touches. At night, Thandi fantasizes about Charles as she masturbates. A. Thandi is emotionally disconnected from her body, and Margot has been disconnected from her emotions, flooded with sadness as she was recently. Why does our brain cause us to disconnect from parts of ourselves? And what does this sort of disconnection suggest to you about healing? B. While touching Giorgio, Margot was flooded with emotions, and while being touched by Miss Ruby, Tandy's body is aroused. Do we need touch to survive? And if so, on what levels, physical, emotional, spiritual, etc.? Why might we help to heal each other or ourselves with the power of touch? C. It seems that some people don't much like to be touched. What might lead a person to recoil from touch? And how might you help someone become comfortable with touch? And D. Disconnection was Tandy's response to rape, a physical trauma inflicted on her body. What are some other ways people react to and cope with rape? Do females and males react to rape and other physical trauma differently?
All right. Thank you.
Great questions. Wow.
Yes.
Who wants to start?
Well, I'll just say that when I read that passage in the story, I immediately thought about how Thandi in her life, she's not getting love. She's not getting love. And neither is Margot. And then you look at Dolores, who really, I don't know exactly what happened in her life to make her not be able to love her daughters the way they needed to. And why physical contact is now become, in the story, it seems to be presented more as a weapon, a tool used. And even when Miss Ruby is touching Thandi, what she's doing to her is destruction. Just destroying her natural beauty. But this is the only, physical contact that Tandy's getting. And then we look at Margot, who, sure, sex, when she's on top of the guy and she's making him moan and bite the pillow, which I thought was interesting phrase because normally that's used for homosexual encounters, but okay. This, that physical touching, it's not love, but it's power, one person's power over another. And then even when in her encounter, I think described with Verdine, they snuggled. I don't think there was really any sexual contact described between Margot and Verdine. They have a different physical relationship than Margot has with her customers in Alfonso. So Yeah, touching is very, and then we look at the touching that Clover did to Thandi, the rape, how it starts. And I thought that was very abrupt how she described it. And maybe that I'm jumping ahead, or it's in some other question you had, but the cupping of her mouth. Suddenly, Clover cupped her mouth. So you envision this to yourself, this 9-year-old just strolling along. She's thinking about drawing, or whatever it is that she's thinking about. And then her world is shattered because, somebody desired her, or this is his having power over this young girl. And then later on in their encounter in the store, okay, I'm just all over the place, but their encounter in the store, you know, he why does the rapist think that he can talk to the victim? Okay, you don't think what you did was a violent act. She was, she's there for your pleasure, because and I guess this is perhaps a colonialist or a sexist mentality that, okay, all these women are used for, the tourists, the people of a better class who can afford to use their bodies. I'm going to use it too. I'm here all the time. Why can't I get some? So I'm just going to take it. So here you have the woman continually being the victim because she is the fruit and anybody can just pluck it, and what is she going to do about it? Can she tell? Who is she going to tell? The woman who doesn't show her, a motherly love? Can she and not feel that she will be blamed? This is the woman who, Dolores, she gave up her little Margot to some rich tourist, said, okay, I want that right there. Okay, I want that fruit right there in them 2 legs in that little dress. Okay. How, what kind of mother does that? We're gonna be eating some rock soup, okay? We're gonna get some dig for some clams or whatever. But no, you're not taking my baby.
Well, that's what
okay.
That's what I mean about options. There's something else, but you got to look hard enough. You got to look hard enough.
Yeah.
I think that it's hard when you have been victimized and you come to believe that this is the new normal for you. And then when you have children and you don't feel that they have the right to something different because it's happened to you. So I'm just wondering if Dolores just would never say this. I will give up my. I wouldn't put a man over my child because there are African American people and women in this today that will put a man, and I'm not saying it's a lot of them, and I don't get me wrong, but I do know of one that would sacrifice their child for a relationship. Because you keep saying you left them where with who? What? You know that person where you gotta keep saying you left who in your house with the what? So
yeah.
I think this is such a messy business, And then the one thing that I did want to say was that in terms of the sense of touch, I think the body remembers the trauma. So even if the mind has to separate from it in order to cook the chicken and wash the dishes and get to school and do the next thing, the body remembers. And you can then say, well, I can't have too much touch because I'm trying to act as if nothing's happened to me. And going back to certain sensations will bring that all up, and you may not have a way of dealing with it. So, and then in terms of the other question was, do men and women deal with it differently? I don't think so. I think the only thing I could think of is that men may have a teeny bit more shame about being victimized sexually, if that's possible, because they're supposed to be these power brokers. And for me, all of this inappropriate sexual abuse is all about power. None of it is about pleasure. It's all about power. So then for you to be a male and have someone do things to your body, I would wonder if they had this just extra level of shame that women have shame, but I'm just wondering if it's more.
Yeah,
Well, I remember years ago reading that women who have been sexually abused tend to become self-destructive, and men who have experienced the same thing tend to become destructive. They externalize their pain, where women are more likely to internalize it. Neither way is good, you know. It still means there's a disassociation going on there, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
It's a problem because it means that there's all of this stuff that you may be doing that one part of your brain has no awareness of, so it's like living in a state of you're operating out of your subconscious instead of your conscious. And so, like, if you think about somebody like Dolores, we don't ever get to know much about her story. But, it's not a reach to imagine that some bad things happened to her.
Right. I was thinking that as well. I like how you kind of use that mind body split. So Thandi is operating, through supposedly this logic, the mental labor, right? And then Margot is performing a lot of embodied labor, and then going deeper, as you state, that one is emotionally disconnected, and then one is kind of like having this disembodied experience. And so I would have to say then Dolores seems to be disconnected from emotion and body. So then what does that mean for a person who is so disconnected to be trying to parent someone else? And the reality is, even though children grow up, reach adulthood, we begin to understand that you're still parenting an adult, right? So that doesn't change the level of work. The labor might look different, but you still are a mother to your adult child. So what does that mean? But I want to, having said that, I'm sitting with what Georgette said, like, why do these victimizers think that they can still have access to a person's either the visceral responses or her space, or what and I get, like, yes, there's definitely an issue regarding power, but the nerve, it's just like the nerve of him to be still trying to intimidate her, right? Would you all not? Did you take it like, oh, I'm coming to see your cute face? Like, are you serious?
I like a Odom Messiah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's so temptations of these men. I'd have to say right now, my preference would have to be young Charles.
Oh yeah.
Because thus far, and then Maxie, I know Maxie can be a little problematic. But yeah, so this young man is my hope. I don't know what's gonna happen, the rest of the book, but my hope right now is certainly in Charles because these other men are out of their damn minds.
Well,
They
yeah, and
definitely.
that's why I was asking the question about Clover, of what happened to him, because how do you grow up to be a rapist?
That's a good question.
And we could ask the same question, with regard to these young white men that are going into schools, shooting everybody they can. How does that happen? What happened to you? Something happened to you. This is not normal.
Right.
Well, I believe in Clover's instance, as probably with a lot of the black men that are on the island, that this has been acceptable behavior because they have not been stopped. See, Clover would be dead. So Clover would not ever have the opportunity if it was me. Any day, whether it's 1840, 1950, 2018. Clover knows been stopped. These secrets have been kept. It's okay. Mama ain't stopping you. Grandma ain't stopping you. I understand. Margot, she was reminiscing about her mother, how she noticed that there was a man's hands always on her butt. Okay? No one has been stopped. So it's perfectly normal, perfectly natural. Clover is damn sane. It's okay. It's acceptable behavior because no one's been stopped.
Oh, that makes sense, Venita. And that is the bottom
to
line.
abuse these women's bodies before the white men did the tourists that came there. They're abusing these women, going from woman to woman on these islands the same way they're doing in our country today. They're not being stopped. So that's why it was perfectly normal for him to go up to her after raping her and victimizing her again and intimidating her and all this other crap because he wasn't stopped. And he's not worrying about being stopped.
Right. That's so true.
Because obviously from that kind of behavior, and I've seen that before, right here, people that I know that keep these things a secret. No one tells, no one stops the perpetrator. So it goes on and on.
Yeah.
So it was no thought process for Clover. This is perfectly normal behavior. Probably saw the same thing when he was growing up, little girls being accosted. No one stopped them. Hush, Mabel. Don't let Miss May family find out about it. When we go down to a Bible meeting, shh, throw that Bible, be quiet. I mean,
right.
Yes.
That's right.
So I know what all that's about. So the long and short, we could throw it up and throw it down. This is normal behavior. Normal. It's normal.
And I like how you represent that, Venita, I like how you represent that because then it makes people, there's an accountability to what you're saying, because if it's not being stopped, then it's being normalized. And if it's being normalized, then we understand, again, like that circular logic, we can understand why it's not being stopped. So how do we contribute to normalizing abuse and victimization? And you're right, when you have those big mamas who have said, oh, don't cause trouble, just we just keep it in, or I'm thinking about y'all know that white family, all the kids' names starts with J. They had like 19 or 20. Remember, it came out that the brother had sexually abused those sisters? And then what they decide is they're gonna send him away and he's gonna get prayer. And I'm like, No, I'm like Marsha Dyson, Michael Eric Dyson's wife said, some people need Jesus and Prozac. He might need some medication, to help control that impulsivity. But I'm also wondering about how in the US we invoke this narrative of those kids, white kids namely, in schools and these involved. And here I think we have, I know this is fiction, or so-called fictionalized elements, but you have a case with oppressed people who really need mental health services, who are really suffering. But that's never going to be, our narrative, right? That's never a way out for Black people, Black men, Black. It's just, what can I say? This just, wow.
I don't.
I'm just going
to. I don't think that. I really am starting to question how much of this is down to the individual, and how much of this is systems. Because I think you got the tense wrong, Nicole. This is not normal. It's not behavior that's being normalized. This is the normal behavior. The thing that's changing, the shift that's coming is it's agency that's brand new. Right? It's not something. So we're not normalized. This is the normal behavior is to not have agency.
Wait, but are you saying that the perpetrator has agency? The victimizer?
I mean, in terms of, so say for example, that women and girls' bodies are devalued to such a point that anyone can take them.
Right. Absolutely.
That's not something that's being done. That is the norm. The age that women have the right to say no. That's the kind of agency that I'm talking about. Is brand new. Like it's still got the plastic wrap on it. Like it's brand new as a thought.
Right.
And also doesn't exist for still most women in the world. Most women in the world don't have choice around that stuff at all. Whether it's because of systems or, well, all because of systems. So I don't think that I'm really starting to question, is it mental health? Or is it that patriarchy is so steeped? Because here's the earlier question, Michelle, that you asked around, being like 15 to 20, whatever. This is a thing that happens, right? Like prostitution, like men all over the world, different backgrounds, different races, different economies, they're attracted to young girls. Like that is something that is universal. And so it's like, what is the system that is perpetuating this idea of like the thing that is most precious around sexuality is youthful and childlike? Because I can't believe that all those people are mentally ill. There's something else feeding it.
I don't
know. So I wasn't saying that they were. I was saying in the context of in America, we have like these school shootings are becoming our norm. So I think, but Black folks in America, I'm saying I do think we have a case. And we should, I believe, a component of reparations should not just be money, but mental health services for free. So I was just speaking of, I was talking about that and still in this context. But no, I think you're absolutely correct. But Leonie, we don't even have to look far, right? All of our media representations sell this, right? Even when you look at biblical narratives, when you look at, media again, which is a representation of patriarchy.
Yeah, it's kind of, so it's just like, what is a system that is supporting that? Because all these men throughout the world, different backgrounds, are attracted to the same thing and feel that they have the right to the same thing. And it's bizarre because I don't have that attraction. You understand? I'm attracted to men. I could not stare at a 15-year-old boy and be like, yep, I want some of that. Like that's never gonna happen.
Right. Especially after you've raised one, and they don't
understand what I'm saying? Like there's something else there. I don't know what it is, but like I'm really starting to question. Like I don't know. I think it's the narrative goes that these people are sick, but I don't think that they are the old. I don't think that's true.
Check the Bible out. Check the Bible out. children have been abused. I don't want to offend any religious people, but it goes way back, right back to damn near Jesus time. So this stuff, you know what I'm saying? It goes way back. The abuse of children, whether it's sexually, whether it's labor, whether it's anything. Check the Bible.
And the other thing to keep in mind too is that, like, we're talking about a Black country, and in so many places in the world, Black bodies have only been commodities.
That's it.
And whites have modeled how Black bodies should be treated.
Right, right. In Jamaica, a Black body has only ever existed as a commodity. That's the only reason why they're there. Right? They're not natural to that place.
Absolutely.
Let me jump in here and get Venita, Mrs. Venita, to read question 3 for us, and I'll be right back. Okay.
Which chapter, Miss?
Well, the numbers are consecutive, so
13.
just fine.
I mean, I'm sorry, 12.
Question number 3.
Back to chapter 11. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. The phone rings, and one man teases Alfonso that it's his wife, Raquel, who is calling. Alfonso runs to take the call, disappearing into one of the 5 empty bedrooms for privacy. When he returns, the men laugh. See, I'll tell you, it was the wife. When I read that, I was having my coffee. You know, that's my drug of choice. So I was like, okay, last time we're together, we considered the role of one of the silent characters, Grandma Merrill, Margot's grandmother. Let's take a moment now to consider another silent character, Raquel, Alfonso's wife. 1, what role is Raquel fulfilling in the story? What is her purpose? What do we imagine about her character? 2, we're all selling something. It may not be sex per se, but it's something. Let's think about that. What is Alfonso's wife selling? Is his wife any better just because presumably she only opens her legs for him? Why does she receive social respect when we look down on queens of the night? Compare and contrast similarities and differences between Raquel, Alfonso's wife, and Margot, his whore.
Thank you.
You want me to start, girl, on Raquel?
Yes. Yes, you the wife. Tell us what's going on with the wife.
Well, I don't know what's going on in Raquel's house. But what's going on in Raquel's house is not going on at 17 Scott Lane.
They having orientations for hookers at Raquel's house.
But you know, see, it's the same reason why approximately 53% of white women voted for Donald Trump.
All right.
Okay. When I was reading that and I read all your questions, it's like, does Raquel know? Yes, Raquel knows. They all know. You know what you got. That's why when women say, you know what, my husband, no, when you met that man, he threw back 3 shots of cognac in 20 minutes. You knew that when y'all was on your date. Because that's not social drinking.
And
you understand
earlier in the book, Margot had pointed out that all the times that she's with Alfonso, Raquel never calls.
Right.
She's the reason to call. She know where he at. That goes back to slavery.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know where they were, but they kept on in there doing their little whatever they do, act like they don't know. If they wasn't bringing them to them, they know exactly what's going on. Raquel was home looking through that Aston Martin convertible catalog with the triple stitch baseball glove seats. And thinking about that new Chanel purse that came out in the 2017 line.
And she was okay, huh?
And she was okay. Okay. She said, as long as she don't come here and ask me nothing, interrupt me, look through the catalog of that Aston Martin. I don't care where Alfonso is.
As long as that money.
When you see the husband, you see the wife.
Uh-huh.
People are attracted to people like themselves. I don't think Raquel is home reading her Bible. I doubt it. Raquel is home waiting for those big armpits to open up with those big brick pillows with the lines on the top, girl, and for that deal to bring that new Aston Martin through. She ain't even trying to worry about Alfonso's little silly behind.
So in a sense, then I hear you saying Raquel is not really very different than Margot.
Oh, she's the same. Her and Margot one the same. Except Margot is a poor girl. So poor equals whore equals slut equals no good equals low down. And she's black to boot. When you're white, it equals purity. Do it pretty, make it nice. Put a band on your hand. Make sure when you do open your legs, you got a diamond ankle bracelet dripping from your ankle.
Venita's on it today.
Raquel is the queen of hoes. She doesn't
Venita didn't say whore. She said,
"Oh, that's how in charge."
the HHIC, huh?
Raquel is sort of the way I would probably choose to be if I'm gonna be a hoe. Ain't no sense, going all out there like that. You know what I'm saying? Raquel,
my goodness, yes.
Raquel relaxing her nerves. She ain't thinking about calling Alfonso. He interrupt her evening anyway. The lesson is
okay.
I'm talking like I see. Okay.
Wow. Does anybody have a different take on Raquel?
I would say she symbolizes white womanhood, and the ways that that white womanhood, it's similar to actually what Venita's saying, the ways that white womanhood is always already being protected, right? So she doesn't have to work hard. She can be taken care of. She is that kind of woman whom I can always, or the representation of what I understand as the problem with feminist solidarity.
For real.
Because those kinds of, and mainly white, upper middle class women who are afraid to lose their privilege. When you're talking about doing this work, about feminist consciousness raising, whether we're talking first, second, third wave, and any other wave to come, these are people who do not want to lose their privilege.
At all.
And so she's an accomplice. I agree with Venita there, really, to what he is doing. That it's palatable, though, because it's done to people who don't necessarily look like her. So it's okay to oppress. That's the structure. That's the society that they're in. That's the economy that Black, in this hierarchy, Black bodies, Black folks should be at the bottom, and they should be, and it's okay to exploit them. And again, why we still have not arrived. One of the reasons why at this kind of utopian feminist solidarity, and why I'm not optimistic that it's ever going to happen. And she gives hope. She is the reason why a lot of white women feel like that you know, they've seen models of men who provide and provide well. Whereas, you know, Black women, boo, that's a fantasy. You know, we were happy when Michelle said she's going into that White House and not working. We don't really, you know, get those options often to not work.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Or to not work outside of the home, shall I say. There's still work.
Very well stated. Thank you. All right. Georgette, did you read?
Yeah, I did. I think
Okay,
I did 15.
Leonie, you ready to read?
Sure can.
Number
I
8.
may not make it for the whole discussion because I do have to drop at 7 at the top of the hour.
Okay,
Number
well,
8.
read number 8 for us and give us some accent.
I don't do accents. Margot knew the woman would not turn her down. She went on to explain. Lastly, your duty is to serve. You have to be willing to do anything. Anything that the client asks. Anything.
There you go.
Even if it's to lick the dirt off him shoes. I don't want to hear any complaints from them about stubborn girls. Remember, you're disposable. One slip up and you're gone. You must be able to satisfy the clients and walk away in good standing. Does this differ from other jobs where the employee has no voice? Does this differ from slavery? What would make someone agree to such conditions of employment? In real life, 1969, almost 50 years before Colin Kaepernick took his knee, the Black 14 were blackballed for trying to make a similar stance on strip voice. Messages of uselessness and disposability are pervasive in our modern work world. What impact does this message have on human beings, and what are some ways we push back against this message? C. Horror stories abound about what people are expected to tolerate in the modern workplace. Have you ever been asked to tolerate conditions you found unreasonable? And if so, how did you handle it?
Thank you. Anybody? Lick the dirt off him shoes.
So this is, I have an ongoing conflict around the description of sex work as work. Well, I get the impulse. And I know sex workers who would not call themselves such and some who do. I have never seen anyone who wasn't a white woman choose that work as have choice in that selection. I also happen to have never met a sex worker who wasn't abused as a child. So it's kind of for me, I see that kind of work more akin to something like slavery than work. And you know, there's always this like black or white conversation around slavery. Like if things are like it, kind of like the Holocaust or whatever. But that's not the way that people work. There are conditions and layers, and you know, you could be on the same road and not recognize that you're on the same road. And I think ultimately you're talking about women being reduced to often reduced to sex work. There's very few women, I think, who have that as a choice. And so, yeah, I guess that's it. That's all. It's a problematic question for me, and not question, but like that position around sex work being work, because it's just not true to the reality of anyone that I know who does it, and it's a longer list than most people in terms of who you would know, just because of where I grew up.
Wow.
Okay. Anybody else?
I guess, Leonie, I just wanted to ask you, so you're saying like you don't see, when you look at that situation, there are no splinters for you. Like do you see this like as a continuity of women who, regardless of where they are located, there is still this notion of, in the inequity. Is that what you're saying? Like, I can't remember how you said it verbatim, but regardless of where a woman thinks she is, or I guess thinks she has agency or not, there's still a diminishing of that. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, Margot's obviously making some choices about what she's doing with her body, but she's doing that within a context. Remember, we have a man who's less than mediocre,
right,
who is running, who owns hotels,
right,
and you have Margot who knows how to run a hotel
and
who has to rent her ass by the hour.
Yes,
for no other reason than she's female.
Absolutely, and Black.
Yep.
Because the woman who would be running the hotel after he finishes is his daughter.
Right.
So white men don't mind extending this wealth to their progeny. So his daughter, her children, and that's how white women.
Yeah. Ultimately. You think of a place like Jamaica, and its main industry is tourism, and I think bauxite, like some kind of mineral around making aluminum. And like a lot of African nations, for example, it doesn't get to keep any of its wealth.
Right.
It's most of its wealth is is still held by people who are rich and white, or rich and white adjacent.
Absolutely.
And so it's like there isn't a whole lot of choice that I see for somebody like, there's a famous quote that Manley said, one of the prime ministers, when people said how bad it was in Jamaica, his answer was, there are 3 flights to Miami every day.
Wow. How insensitive.
You understand what I'm saying? This is like, what are you gonna do?
Right.
Absolutely.
That
said, now. Sorry?
I said, I know also that there aren't many choices in Jamaica, because my husband's Jamaican, and I know that we have to contribute to a lot of folks' well-being, families, which most are dead now, from aunts to cousins to grandmoms, all women, mind you. I don't feel like it's an obligation. I feel like it's a responsibility, because they have responsibility of all the responsibility, and they don't have anyone to help them. It is very hard there. That's why when I look at Margot and I look at her mother, I see things a lot different. And actually, she's not only a slave to the white tourists, because tourism is the huge part of their business. She's also a slave to her mother, which probably was a slave to her mother. And Thandi is a slave to Margot. So it's really a hard situation. I don't even know mentally why Margot just has not lost her mind. You know what I'm saying? Which she probably has to a certain extent, but just checked out, because you are slaved to everyone. And what I mean by slave is you don't have a choice. It's expected of you.
That's so true.
It's 7 o'clock.
Let me just say a word before Leonie leaves. Leonie, on the April situation, why don't you start a conversation in the session 10 group?
Okay.
Will
do. Thank you, women. It was
great.
Bye,
Leonie. Good discussion.
Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yes, it's a little different, but I do feel I understand exactly what Leonie's saying, but they also are a slave to their own families.
Yes.
So they are slaves by everyone.
Oh, that's deep.
So when folks say that Margot has a choice, Margot might have more choices if she wasn't a slave to her family and the only thing Margot had to think about was her own well-being. But when you're a slave to your family and you are taking care of your family also, whether it's flowing up or whether it's flowing down or whether it's flowing sideways, how much choice, I wonder, does she really have? Is it really extra? Because I know from my experience, it might not be extra. You know. So
absolutely. Wow.
She's doing a lot of slaving.
So okay. So Margot may or may not have some degree of choice, but what I wonder is, do any of us, because I have known more than my share of toxic workplaces in my lifetime. And I have been astonished, really, at some of the things that I have seen people, in this land of riches, things that I have seen people tolerate in the workforce. So I'm kind of feeling like it really almost doesn't matter where you are on the economic ladder, that we're all chained to this system, that makes it appear as if we really don't have any options. That line about remember you're disposable. One slip up and you're gone. I see that attitude. They may not, employers may not be as crass or direct as Margot in putting that in a sentence and saying it just like that, though some are.
Yes, I was gonna say.
But whether you say it directly or indirectly, the message is still there, and I think it's a pervasive message. We don't need you. You ain't nobody. There's a line of folk standing out there behind you. So either you're gonna take this shit, or we'll find somebody that will.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that as a human being, as a worker trying to survive in this capitalist world that we're in?
That keeps reinventing itself, right, Michelle? That's the complexity of it for me, because as soon as we think we got this thing figured out, here's another element. We talk about feminist movement and equal pay for women. And when we look at, if we go back and trace, how as a result of women entering the workforce, so you see how wages were just suppressed, right? So it's just like the corporations, the big wigs, they always have an opportunity, it seems, to set the rules, to establish the rules. And what's most disheartening is this book shows us how the reality is that we cannot be domestic terms, capitalism, where we are, that this is global monopoly capitalism. This is the new game that's being played. And so how do we survive this? And we know as Black folk, we always tend to survive, but we're surviving and maimed and wounded, and you know, we're going through.
Yeah.
Well, remember someone once said, and this is why things tend to just cascade over and over again, either because after a while, because the people in power are the ones with the dough, we tend to keep our heads down and make it through the transaction. Remember that, Michelle?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and I wasn't fond of that advice then, and I'm still not.
I'm not giving that as advice. I'm saying that's why things have not changed. And we can't change it. We're so beaten down. If they're throwing these lightning bolts from so many different ways, and they hold the power because they hold the dough, so we tend to try to keep our heads down to get to the transactions so we can survive for the next lightning bolt to come. And then keep your head down to get to the transaction, and this goes over and over again because we have to eat.
Right.
Yeah.
Your two babies can't eat every other day. Those girls need food every day.
Right.
A lot of things going to work. There's a lot of times, and it's probably why there's so much employment and why Michelle will never have a job again as long as she lives, because she can't keep her head down and make it through the transaction.
You're the troublemaker, eh?
Me and Michelle, that's why we say, Nicole, we wouldn't be good slaves. We would not be good slaves. I couldn't even be a good house slave. I can't keep my head down to get to the transaction. You know what I'm saying? That's why we're all here together now. If you look at all of our personalities, we just can't keep our head down to get to the transaction. We wouldn't have made good slaves.
We have too many questions.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true, Michelle.
When you want me to do what?
You know, I couldn't even make a good whore. I mean, no, I can't get to the transaction.
That's true.
I had to grow some vegetables in the backyard. I had nice vegetables and a couple of chickens out there. We just had to do the best we can. Put some flowers on them. That's what we eat. 5 days a week.
That's true.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I definitely, this thing is just morphing all different kind of ways. You know, Harriet Tubman was looking for the way out. And she found one group, you know, and they came up with something else. So
right.
We got to keep looking.
They hold it down.
And we got to keep, I think it's also very important that we all stay unified. It's like the way to break us is that each of us start looking at the fact that my child has to eat, as opposed to the fact that we may go hungry. Some of us may go hungry, but we all got to plant something. We all have to have some bit of ownership. And, you know, I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking about Audre Lorde. And I'm saying to myself, Audre Lorde would kick our asses here in this conversation.
Oh my goodness.
All of us. I agree with everything everybody has said, but I also just feel like, you know what? If this isn't the time to fight, I don't know when it is.
Oh, you're so right, Ken.
I don't know about I don't. When Margot decides that she's going to make these other girls into prostitutes, the line for me, and that's more about greed. So there's just a part of me that I'm responsible for my sister. I'm responsible for my sister. So And I think this whole topic is gets me on. It makes it harder for me to kind of say this is just fiction because it is just so brutally.
Fiction.
I don't know. I just find that the book is so well written that it makes you stop and say, yeah, let's look underneath the covers, and that's what I like that we're looking under the covers. But I still feel like, where's Audre Lorde?
I know, but I'm so glad you said that, Kim.
Yes.
Because it does, like what you're saying about the difference between when she was just hooking for herself, that was one thing. But when she crossed over to become a madam, you know, it's making it harder and harder for me to have any real compassion for this character.
Yes.
And I want to.
Right.
I mean, I really want to. I see the horrible things that she's experienced in her life. I see how she got here.
But she's attached herself. She's attached herself. She's detached herself.
Right.
Because of all the things she's experienced, because she's being enslaved from the top and being enslaved from the bottom, being enslaved all over. I think Margot has just detached herself. She no longer has the ability to feel empathy. This is when the mental illness, for me, I think starts kicking in.
Yeah. Well, and
you know,
I want to bring us to a close because we are running over, and so I'm not trying to have a whole conversation about it. But we did not get to talk about the piece Margot spreads the rumor about Scott Henry. And so when you talk about having unity, I mean, I think it's important that we really look at the way we treat each other, the things that we do to each other.
Yes.
And you know, story right out of real life. And connect the dots to why we can't find unity in the community.
Well, Scott Henry also, although Margot was defaming her by calling her, you know, by convincing, what's her face? I forgot her name. What's her name? Kensington, that she was a dyke, mannish, so on and so forth. Well, if you look at Henry's also attitude, because she was beautiful with the good hair, with the beauty queen stuff, and I'm assuming she's one of those lighter skinned, probably mixed Jamaicans. As so was Charles with the light brown hair, with the light brown eyes and the light hair. When she came to the hotel, she wasn't even trying to massage the people that were there, as I feel as a manager I would have done. You know.
Well, no, I disagree. I mean, she learned everybody's name. But she was always having little chit chat with people. There was the one girl who said she was sick, and she was like, "Well, go home. We don't want to get the guests sick." You know, to me, they were painting a picture that she was personable.
I didn't necessarily take that as being saying that she was personable. I think it was just I didn't know really how to read her. Whether that was being personable or that was just being businesslike. We don't want to get the guests sick, so you need to go home. Because she had this air about her anyway. So I didn't really see it as personable. It's like, this is business. I don't want to get sick. Bam.
But would you agree that no matter what she had done, Margot was going to hate her?
Of course. Margot's a little black girl. And she's everybody's dream. I'm sure a lot of the women in that hotel, even the ones that hate Margot because she had a little more prestige, they felt than she did. But I'm sure the rest of the dark-skinned women in that hotel was feeling that. Because we do know that she was probably treated with a little tad more respect, because the closer you look to white, the better you're treated.
So that colorism.
Well, you know how that is. Blue-eyed, Ivy.
But I have a question. Was Scott Henry white or was she mulatto?
She's not.
Because she was white? Okay.
Well, no, I think she's some kind of mulatto or light skinned
I think
black.
she was mulatto. Yeah. With the good
Okay.
hair term used, cut off all that good
Mhm.
hair. You know, if it was a white person, they would have said good hair. That's a black term for mulatto mixed.
Mm,
I'm
Yeah.
assuming. There's a lot of mixed people in Jamaica,
oh
Mhm.
yeah.
you know,
That's
like
so
Brazil
true.
Mhm.
or like anywhere else. But Jamaica has a lot of mixed people. Like Charles. Charles is mixed up with something. Bob
Mm-hmm.
Marley, you can tell.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, he was quite a bit removed from West African look. You know, so I'm assuming she was that tall beauty queen. What other beauty queens? I mean, you know.
Well, but you
Right.
know, a lot of the Miss Universe and these pageants in the beginning, even though the people were mostly black and brown skin, the person who they put in was white.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
So that's why I had a question, yeah, because I know she was described as having custard, but okay, what kind of custard? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
custard skin, but
I think
that
she's
that
on
was
the.
it.
No, I'm
Mhm.
saying I think she's on the Vanessa Williams type.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well,
You know
and
what I'm saying?
Vanessa, if you cross one eye and look white, okay.
I know that's right.
Okay.
You know?
Which worked in her favor. Yes, it did.
Yes, it did. So I think that's the. Go ahead, Georgette.
But,
Wow.
Well,
but Scott,
all
but
right.
Scott, but we can agree that she was everything that Margot wanted to be.
Yes.
Right.
She was
Mhm.
in the position
Yes.
she felt that she deserved.
Yes.
Right.
And I guess psychologically, what does that do? Because ultimately, I think we all have an opportunity to see those models
Right.
of people who are either doing the work or who this is what and who I like. And so what kind of impact, and even as women, like I'm I'm loving, I love how she places that in this text. Though those are those art craft tricks, the
Yep.
writing, but they go so far. It means so much. But what happens when we meet these individuals? For some of us, we get more motivated, right? And then others that jealousy, envy, the hate
Yeah.
is going to be
Hmm.
the result. Um,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, like, what was she dreaming? Like, I read all the time, or if I've attended craft talks, I hear writers say, "Oh, and this character came to me in my dream, and then this part right here." Like she does so much here. I just wonder, just where did she? How did this all come to her?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
This is
Mm.
a good. I'm so glad we chose this one.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
It's not an
I
easy
think
read. I have
I
to say
think
it's not an
It's
easy
not
read.
Kim. It pushes you, right, Kim? I like what you said, Kim. That's
It's just
true.
like now what?
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that we do have to talk about not having power in order to figure out how to get power.
mm. Ooh, that's
Mm.
deep. Mm. Kim, you starting something now. Ooh, that's deep.
Because we're gonna have to get to some
Mhm.
power soon. Because we're gonna have a choice.
That is true. That's the truth.
Even if it's
Yeah.
500 years from now, right, Michelle?
That's right.
That's
That's
right. That is so
gotta get it.
true.
So, all right, it is 7:20, and
Yep.
as my
Oh,
however many questions I have indicates, there is so much to think about as we go through this book. And if we can just reflect on a little bit of it, um, then I think we will have some of the insight and uh, sensitivity that the author wants us to gain going through this experience with Margot and co.
Absolutely. My goodness.
One thing I really was surprised at is that some of the words were used that I heard coming up, and in Philadelphia from my grandmother and my aunts and stuff, that they're saying on the island. I heard those words referred to as a woman that was homosexual. She funny. A woman that acted too much like a guy. My grandmother used to do that. You know, I'd be running and she'd just stop acting so mannish. You know, those words, it's like it's universal. This is coming from Jamaica, but I remember my southern grandmother from down south saying those things, like, you know, when you sit down, make sure you cross your legs to ankle, you know, to be ladylike. And if you want to play ball and roll your pants up, she would tell you if your hair was out, she'd look mannish. You know, people and those same words, and they refer to homosexuals as, you know, he just funny. They wouldn't say he gay. He a little funny. That's all. And they keep it moving. And I see those words coming from Jamaica. The same words. I thought it was pretty amazing.
You know what my favorite word was? Bumbleclot. Oh yeah, in my whole life. I've never seen it in print in my whole life. Yeah, I've known that word for at least 50 years. I've never seen it in print. Never. Oh, man, I was dancing around. I said, "Oh, that's it." We couldn't say it. We couldn't say it. It was a curse.
Yes, that's so true.
I love seeing it in print like that with a exclamation point behind it.
Yes.
I didn't print myself.
I had never heard that. I didn't know it was a real word, Kim.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Movies.
I've never seen that written.
Yeah.
Wow.
I guess a little bit of everybody lived on our block as a kid, so you know, we used everybody's curses. We knew the Spanish curses. We knew the you know, but that was the first time I saw it in print.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I didn't know mannish was the word. I thought it was slang because it was used the way it was when I was growing up. I thought it was slang. I didn't know it was a real word like mannish. But it was used when you weren't feminine enough. You acted a little too boyish, a little tomboyish. My grandma say, "That's looking a little mannish," and she said, "Stop acting mannish."
Yeah.
You know, so it's really amazing how we are just one big circle and we're still pretty universal in our language.
That's so true.
You know, the one thing that I did want to say, to just go back to something Georgette said when we first started, was when you look at this story and you go back to after slavery ended and before the WPA, is it? Before, then you can see the similarities that there was nothing that was going to catch you. Nothing was going to catch you. There was no welfare, no anything. So there is that similar history. It's just that I think we have something to fall back on in recent decades.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yep.
Good point. That's right, Kim. That's a good point. Excellent point. Yep.
But then when I was younger, there were people that welfare was around, but then there were people, it depends on who wanted to accept it. There was also communities, so not everyone accepted welfare. When somebody got laid off from the shipyard or somebody lost their job over at the factory or so and so forth, the community made sure that those people were taken care of, and those same courtesies were returned if neighbors ran into situations. I remember that also, and not what
right, but it was just, you know, but whether it's one thing, you know, whether it's there and you don't choose it,
right.
But if it's there, then that's still a different environment than you're in, and you see the community helping each other in this book, like one of those little towns got taken over by developers, and everybody had to disperse. And that's when people went to live with each other, and we're being as charitable as they could be with each other. So they're showing that as well.
Well, there's a welfare system in Jamaica. That's
Right.
what I was explaining before. We are the system that's here. That's why we had to make sure money was sent for food, for medication, for clothing, for any of their needs, because they don't have a system. When you go to school, you don't go unless you have money. You have to buy your books, you have to buy your uniforms. So no, they don't have a public school system in place.
Right. And so that's why I'm saying that's a very different context than living someplace where there is a system and you just choose not to use it.
Oh, to utilize.
But I was just saying that in the sense of there being community where people still did make choices that I saw when I grew up. Although there's a system there, I'm not even talking about Jamaica here. It still was more of a sense of community than it is today. You know, people were, the last thing they wanted to do was to accept some welfare. I haven't heard those terms. You know, no, you're not going to accept nothing from anyone. We're going to get together. We're going to make this work. You know.
Right. Well, I think today, your friends and family are the ones that are actually pushing you toward welfare systems. Because they don't want to have to share a crust of bread and such. But you know what? That reminds me of I don't know if y'all saw this story I posted. I'm gonna hang up this call in a minute. But it was this African ambassador from Benin. Did y'all see that story on my page? And they thought they found the Clotilda, the last slave ship to come out.
I didn't read it, I just see that though.
So the ambassador, who is a prince from his country, took a boat to go to this site. And when he got there, he did a little prayer, gave a little speech, and basically he was asking African Americans to forgive him. And he was saying that his people, his family, because he came from this long dynasty, were actually involved in trading slaves. And they said in the article that there are a lot of people in Benin today who don't want to sit by a door if you invite them over to your house. How they did it. A friend or a family member would invite you over for some tea and crumpets or rice and beans, whatever it was, and tell you to sit by the door, and in would come the slave catchers because they had already sold you out. So I think, from my own experience, it feels to me like we are de-evolving to that kind of a level, Venita. Where not only do we not have the sense of community you and I grew up with, but you really need to take care not to sit by the door.
Yes.
Lord. It's getting bad.
You know what? Black folks, when I grew up, I do remember, even in my teenage years, always had a problem with sitting by the door. When you say that, when I think back in retrospect, first thing come out their mouth, don't sit me by the door.
Really?
I don't want to sit by a door. But that was yes, I've heard that. When you brought that up, and I started thinking about where did I hear that from? I've heard that from aunts, and when I grew up, they would say when they go to a restaurant, I don't want to sit by the door. You do not sit them by the door. I look for the door because I want to be next to an exit in case white folks go crazy. I can get out of there.
Okay.
But when they were, I remember my aunts, and when you go out to dinner, they would always have this thing. They didn't want to sit near a door. If a waiter or waitress took them near a door, I don't want to sit near the door.
Yeah.
So that's where that came from.
Wow.
Because I remember when you said that, I know I heard that. And that's where I heard that. So that must have been, when I think in retrospect, they always had a problem with sitting near the door. They would get up in arms. Don't sit me near the door. It was like, I thought maybe because they felt diminished, because it was in the back of a restaurant. But maybe that's not it. Maybe they didn't want to sit near the door because of that being passed down.
Or right, maybe there's something in our body, something in our genes, in our DNA that remembers.
My grandmother's Southern too. My mother's mother and my father's mother, once from North Carolina, once from South Carolina. You know, so they've been through. They had seen a lot, been through a lot. You know, I mean, I can even imagine the things that they've dealt with. I can imagine, but I don't want to imagine all of it. It's just too much. But I used to listen to them. I used to always be intrigued that, you know, to sit and listen to their stories. And they called them stories too. My grandma said, come here and sit down. I got a story to tell you. You know, it was always good stories. You know, she would tell you something about the past or something about when she was growing up or something. But we don't even have stories anymore. I mean, we don't even have grandmothers hardly anymore. But we don't have stories.
Yeah, well,
right. There's this culture of silence.
You're on a roll, but Kim is giving us that look like,
I need to jump off. I don't want to end the conversation, but I need to go.
All right. Well,
thank you. Thank y'all. Good discussion, guys. Bye-bye.
Yes, indeed. Bye-bye, ma'am.
So, all right, you all. Huh?
What's going on? How you doing?
Well, let me call you right back in a few, or I got to go to the bathroom. So you want to stay?
I'll be back. Well, then stay there.
All right. I'll be right back.
I'll be back in a couple minutes.
Okay.